hello, hello. Hi, it's Cecile.
And Lauren.
Hello, look, Lauren's here with me today. Y'all have been waiting for her.
No, they have not.
Yeah, okay, but I was trying to make you feel good. Okay. Y'all were, right? Well, welcome back. Thank you guys for watching for now, I think maybe 20 maybe watched the last one, but we're excited for the 20 that have started to watch us and continue to grow. This is Things in My Head podcast with Cecile. Jen is behind the camera, and Lauren is here. You might also know us from Brooks Boutique. So this is episode 8. I can't believe it. We are finding our footing on things in my head that we're going to talk about, but it kind of comes up organically. If you want to follow our social media pages and handles, please do. On Instagram, we are Things in My Head Podcast. And if you happen to want to email us, it's thingsinmyheadpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, most of our lovely friends are knowing us from Brooks Boutique, which is a ladies' consignment boutique in Pearland, Texas, which is a suburb of Houston. Our handles on TikTok and Instagram is Love Brooks Boutique. If you want to follow me, specifically on Instagram, it is Sweet and Petite Duo. And then you have Lauren with 2 N's. Like,
LAURENWITH, the number 2 and S. I probably should rethink it.
It's been a while. Well, I know that did anyone watch? Well, did you guys watch or listen to our last episode, which I thought was actually really great? It featured Jen, who has worked with me at the boutique for almost 10 years now. So in 2015. So I've really watched this young woman grow. And so today's topic, honestly, it kind of leads us into Lauren and I. If you know us through the boutique, y'all know a lot about us. We've done the sip and shops where we answer all your questions. Out of everyone, I think we two are the ones that share most of our lives outside of the boutique. Yeah, probably overshare. And so we're like, well, we don't really want to talk about that because I feel like you guys already know all about that. So we kind of thought we would go through we joke all the time that when you sign up to work at the boutique, you sign up involuntarily to a mentorship, meaning just that you have me a couple decades older, because our girls are usually younger in their 20s, in case they want someone to chat with on life, anything that is, not in a judgmental way, or just want to have a different perspective. So that kind of leads us into today's topic, because we had Jen last week talk about the big resale conference that Lauren and Jen went to by themselves in St. Louis. So it was a big trip, 4 days, lots of people. And Lauren's been to it before many times with me. And this year I didn't go, and I had Jen go because she is truly a big part of the boutique, and I wanted her to experience it. While at the same time, I just know Jen that I was like, okay, this might not be as easy for her as maybe it was for Lauren and myself. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. It's episode 7. It's only about 30 minutes, but it was actually very good in terms of Jen sharing what that felt like for her, knowing that she's not as extroverted, not as easy to talk to strangers or big crowds than other people may be. And it could be very intimidating. So I had Lauren listen to it. So if you haven't, please listen to it. The link is on, everywhere, but it's in our podcast link. But Lauren, as you know, went with her. And so during that time, she was texting me how great Jen was doing, because she knew I was worried about her. Just in the sense of, is she okay? Make sure she's okay. And the whole time, Lauren, even from the first night, which was a Thursday, she was like, oh my gosh, she's doing so great. She's so good at this. Like, she is a pro. She's killing it. And so when Jen did her podcast last week and talked about how that first night was very difficult for her, and how she went back after, and it was already late, probably like 9-10 o'clock, they went back to their separate rooms, and she was overwhelmed by that first meet and greet, that she came back and spoke to her roommates, who were great roommates, for 2 hours to kind of talk her off the ledge and saying she could do it, and then prepare for the next day, which is a day of, being out again and giving her affirmations during the morning, and she did great, but to where Lauren had no idea. Mm-hmm. And so after I heard that episode last week and knowing what Lauren was sharing with me from that weekend, I said, Lauren, you really need to listen to that episode. So she did, and she was probably quite surprised, right? So
Absolutely.
What do you think?
So I just want to start off by saying y'all are doing such a fantastic job with Things in My Head podcast. I literally get paid to listen and talk to you guys, but like in this scenario, I like truly am entertained and captivated by you guys. So y'all are doing fantastic.
All Jen. She has a hard part.
I was tuning into this episode and I was kind of like the girl just standing there emoji, because I was like, oh, I knew none of this. And mom's correct. Like I have the text message proof. I texted mom after we got back from the hotel, Jen, or from the ballroom. And I went into my hotel and I was like, Mom, like she's blossoming. Like she's doing such a great job. She sounds like a professional who has been in this industry for 9 years. And so I was genuinely shocked. But then I was fascinated by what you said, what your dad has always taught you, to not let people see you sweat. And I was clueless. You really represented the boutique well, but I think in a shell, like that is what anxiety is. You either are the person where you are sweating, you are, constantly fretting, or you do either bottle it in, or you just don't let other people see it. So I found the episode just so fascinating, and thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, thanks. It was definitely eye-opening to go to an event like that. It was out of my comfort zone, but I'm glad that I did it. And yeah, I kind of stuck to my guns on trying to just be cool as a cucumber on the outside, but dying on the inside sometimes. So It was kind of funny.
How did you feel about talking about it? Because, I've known you for so long, and you are very private. So in last week's episode, I was just so grateful that you opened up and felt safe to have this conversation of your vulnerabilities, especially to people who've known you so long and you never have. So how did you feel sharing?
I think that I was actually thinking about that on the way home. I was like, I never share anything.
Like, what did I say?
But then I was thinking about it, kind of reflecting about why I was opening up, and I think that it boils down to trust. I trust you because we've worked together for so long, and we've been like a tribe for so long.
Yes.
That I trust that it's not going to like bite me in the end.
Yep.
Nobody's going to use this to attack,
weaponize it.
Yeah, weaponize it against me. So I think that it was trust, really.
Oh, I love that. Well, I'm glad you feel that way, because you say that and you're right. I think people have been in scenarios or seen scenarios where someone will share what they perceive as a weakness, and someone will use it against them. So I'm happy. And that's what, if you know the boutique, we joke. I mean, we are so close in particular on who we let in. And so I'm happy that you said that, because not just me, but everybody, all of us.
So inspiring.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, my love. So that kind of leads us into conversation with Lauren and I, because we talk about anxiety in general, and how that affects you daily, and how, even though now I feel like people definitely more talk about it than probably just a few years ago, I think that there's probably times when someone either it's a sensitive topic, or people don't have a way to cope, or what that looks like, or maybe even know how anxiety is presented in their own life, and how to cope with it, or how to acknowledge it and do anything about it. So I think that's what really you wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Mom said, I feel like a lot of our listeners are boutique followers, and I'm an open book and an oversharer. So I was really inspired by two things. First, when the whole car thing was happening, I was talking to our Facebook Live viewers about my anxiety about the whole situation. And one of our fabulous and loyal shoppers and followers is Jennifer. She mentioned how she struggled with anxiety deeply. And I was like, I think that's a fabulous topic to talk about on the podcast. And then I don't know if anybody else has seen the two movies or just the one, but Disney's Inside Out 1 and 2. So essentially what it is they personify our emotions: joy, anger, sadness, fear, disgust. And there are these little characters in our head that control our emotions. And the second movie comes out, and the main character Riley hits as much puberty as you can hit in a Disney movie, and in comes these like new emotions like embarrassment, ennui, envy, and anxiety. And anxiety is this little orange Muppet looking character, and the actress and the writers for this movie I was like, that's me. I'm that little orange Muppet person, and I was really inspired by that. So I think the character anxiety, what they do is they think of all these different scenarios that probably would never happen. And it just becomes this mountain out of a molehill. And I don't think it's talked about enough. But movies that do come out like right now, they're really shedding a light on it. So I wanted to talk about it today.
Okay, well, I love it. So you wanted to ask me your question?
Yes. I wanted to ask, what gives you anxiety, Mom?
Well, she started this by when she walked in the room and said, how are we going to do this? And how are we going to do this podcast? She's like, well, I'm going to ask you what's your anxiety? And I was like, I don't have anxiety. And then we started laughing.
I was like,
and then she listed like 10 things on me. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I think you're very aware. I think what's so great about our relationship is that we're very aware of each other's like habits.
I was going to say weaknesses.
Not weaknesses, because it's not. I really don't want anxiety to be seen as a weakness. It's just something that we deal with. But I don't think it's a secret that you like to have control over things.
But have I gotten better?
You have gotten better.
But the answer is yes.
She's working really hard every single day. The same way I'm working really hard every single day on my own anxieties.
So your thought is that because my natural nature of wanting to be in control of things causes me anxiety.
It could, maybe not as the same kind of anxiety that I deal with, but you can tell when.
Is it? And I'm only asking how you. I'm interested because I have Jen and Lauren here who work very closely with me because I could see. And here's the question I think most people actually ask is because. Are we labeling it correct? Is it anxiety? And I'm really asking that because I know I'm controlling, and I know when, though I've gotten a lot better, I was a lot
absolutely.
worse.
Yeah.
But like I do have this joke, and Mark, and it's not derogatory, but I have this saying, right? Trust but verify, and so it's like I trust whoever, you guys, to do whatever we talk about we're doing, but I do go many times verify if it's done because of the times when it hasn't been done, only because I don't want like a customer to, the crack fall and then it's something else, So Mark, who's, the baby brother, is always like, that just means you don't trust. And I was like, you right. No kidding.
And I think it's really for a professional to say, because we could go back and forth about this forever, but I think it takes like what I did where I went in and some things were revealed that I never knew. Yeah. I think sometimes it just takes talking to someone about it.
I guess the question for the audience is like for me and doing that, I don't think it causes me anxiety and what I picture as anxiety. I think it causes me frustration.
Okay, that's fair. That's really fair.
And so because and I could be wrong, and I believe anxiety is a very fluid word and what that appears like to different people.
Absolutely.
Right? So what you feel as anxiety in your life and Jen gives you anxiety in your life, I might just be, and I'm not saying I don't have anxiety. I'm just saying I feel like my controlling doesn't give me anxiety. It gives me frustration because I'm like, and I'm trying to work on that to just say, let me just do it, But I've learned to really be like, do it. If it messes up, it's not that big of a deal. Is it life-threatening? Probably not. And I do still, because I don't want to micromanage. So, and that's the part that probably I have the most fights with, with all you girls. Not fights, well, some. I fight with my daughters. but it's because I know what anxiety does feel like. I feel like I have anxiety when, now I'm thinking out loud because I'm like, I remember this very specific time. I don't think I deal with anxiety on a daily basis on normal things, but there have been instances when I was like, oh, is this, I can understand finally what people say makes them anxious or gives them anxiety. Or like almost in this scenario where my heart was beating, I wanted out, was like a panic attack. And that was in a scenario where I felt very unwelcomed by, like in the group of people I was with. And it had a long history of things, but I was just like, and so, I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, I get it. And I knew in that moment I had never felt that feeling before, where I was like, I had to get out. You know, I was just like frozen and wanted to get out, but my heart inside was beating so fast. And it was just like, whoa, I acknowledged that, you know, I got to get out of this place. So, but tell me what that means for you. Like, I don't want to demean that, but that's just kind of how I feel like, but I do get anxious.
Yeah, I think that's a great definitive question is, are you an anxious person like me, or what gives you anxiety? Right. I guess that's the better way to word the question. Like, what makes you nervous? Like, what makes your heart race? What makes you like your brain spin and ask all the scenarios? Like, because I think anxiety is making mountains out of molehills. Like, your brain is thinking of all these different scenarios that could happen, but they probably would never happen.
Okay. Where do you think that comes? I mean, so you just mentioned that, you know, it's been helpful that you've talked to someone. So just to clarify, that means you're through therapy, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the question, so I guess I always say this because I do believe in therapy, is there's two things you go for. It's to uncover things to help you acknowledge it and process, and to figure out coping skills once you do that is a lot of times what people want to use it for. So, and also where they have, you know, they ask the question, where did you learn that, right? So you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's so great about working at Bricks Boutique is that we have insurance. So Mom does a great job of investing in her team. And so last year we got insurance, and I never really, even with Family Plan, I never had gone just to have a checkup. And we knew going in for this checkup that I would also ask about therapy and ask to see a therapist. So when you talk about that and you're in this checkup, they hand you a clipboard, and it has all these questions about like your tendencies, your habits, your triggers, depression, thoughts of suicide. And it's like on a scale of 1 to 5. And it's like most likely to like least likely, or not often to very often. And I'm going in thinking of, oh, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that, I'm dealing with this. But I wanted to emotionally vomit, but the doctors in the medical field, to better help you, they want to quantify that. And I thought that was very interesting. So of course I'm filling out this clipboard, and of course I score. It's a score. Like, yay, you win therapy. Yeah, you win a therapist. So of course I win that, and I go in for my consultation, and it's basically asking you all the same questions again. And we end the consultation, and towards the end of the consultation, she's like, I think that you are showing strong signs of ADHD. And here I am going in for anxiety. And I'm like, well, I think I'm here because I have a lot of anxious thoughts, a lot of habits driven by anxiety. And she's like, I think what happens is, even if you didn't show a lot of ADHD signs as a child, anxiety and ADHD are like constantly talking to each other, and whoever's talking the loudest is the one that wins. But for some reason this year, or past couple of years, my ADHD tendencies were talking louder than anxiety. And so I thought that was very, very interesting, because I've always thought myself as an anxious person. So through therapy, my therapist wanted to prescribe me ADHD medication, but it only made the anxiety worse. So what we really worked on was behavioral therapy. Like, what habits can you do and change in order to battle both? Like, I think both works. Either medication works for you, or cognitive therapy, where you work on your habits and controlling your tendencies. So that was a really interesting journey for me.
Okay, so that was a while ago. So
yeah.
So tell me, so how do you think? Like, because people are gonna hear this, I imagine, and think, okay, well, I've always thought of doing it, but what does that look like? And I don't. And some people will think, oh, I don't know. And mind you, we are not therapists. You go professionally.
Please go
professionally.
To a therapist.
But we're just sharing our own experiences. So there would be like, will they really help? Because a lot of people will think, well, I don't know how that's going to help me. You know. So I think this was last year's journey, right?
Yeah, this was last year's journey.
So can you speak about like what help are you still going to therapy? Are you still in like, let's be real clear, just so people have a real understanding. And what did she teach you, and how have you changed your life? And do you think you're still anxious? And like, what is the 1 year after?
Yeah. So 1 year after, I'm currently not in therapy right now. I'm kind of in between providers, and but I really did enjoy the therapist that I did have. And it was a lot of understanding why certain situations made me anxious, what were my responses, helping me with better responses. So you have your triggers, and then you have your ways that you cope. So she definitely encouraged my love of journaling. Journaling really helps. Even now, I still journal. If instead of just like reacting, I think it helps to write it down, makes it feel real. Or you write it down, you're like, is it that serious? Like, is it as explosive as it needs to be? Breathing and making time for yourself, and being aware of your habits, especially with having ADHD. Lists, habits, and a schedule. Having a routine really, really helps.
So how is your anxiety now? And I can share this because when she told me a year ago, and we'll just be frank, they know us. So I think and it's interesting, is because I saw it as a coworker, or her supervisor, right? When it was at the boutique, before she got all this, she would start one thing, never finish it, and then you're like, what happened to this? And so a lot of times I would be like, frustrated, because I'm like, oh my gosh, we just talked about this, and make a list, and so you check it done, and you felt like, I felt like you were like chasing yourself,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
And so so then you went to this, and I said, oh, all that makes sense. And, and I think I think you're downplaying what that did for you. Maybe let's talk about that for a second, because at that moment, what you told me was kind of almost in tears, is that you got these diagnoses and got some help, or got some steps to do, action plans. And you thought, oh my God, I finally feel heard.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
Before that, I think you felt like, what is wrong with me? You felt like maybe me saying, oh my gosh, what has happened? Like, you're not getting things done, made you feel worse, because it made you feel like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get it together? I'm not good enough because I can't get it. But then when you said that, I said, here's what I think you have on a medical side, and here's things you can do to help. I think at that moment you were able to kind of lay it down and get it off your chest, and it wasn't you personally. It wasn't a you personal thing.
It's just how my brain is wired.
Yeah, this is how we can do. You know what I mean? I don't know if
Absolutely.
I'm explaining
No,
that right.
that is exactly what it is, and I think you could either look at it like, oh my gosh, this is what's wrong with me, or this is something that I just need to learn how to overcome. And whether that's through medication that I was on did not work for me. But then habits and routines help as well. And knowing where my weaknesses are, so I can lay that bridge to get over it. And I still struggle to this day. I think my anxiety is, still there. My ADHD, I know what to do to kind of work through things. I love spreadsheets and I love lists now.
I was going to say, I personally, on the professional side, definitely feel you made a huge jump. And I think it's because you are doing the things that will help that, in terms of making lists, like we talked, a to-do list, checking it off, writing it, whatever is visual. But I think the difference is, it wasn't me saying you need to do this to help you. It was you understanding that this is my issue, that this I will help with. It's like the same thing we always say, you can't make someone do something, right? Until they want to do it or understand, to help them. So I think once we got past that, you did use those tools, and Jen can chime in as a coworker. It's much more organized. It's much more reliable. And your confidence in that has shown, because I feel like you don't feel like you're chasing yourself so much.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's still things to work on and perfect, but going to therapy and understanding where the problems lie, that really helped. So... yeah.
So we talked about, so this is a good segment, because there are two scenarios when we're talking about anxiety, because personally amongst us, is what causes anxiety, events that causes anxiety, versus I'm an anxious person. So not being an anxious person, how does that, and Jen, chime in, because I don't know your besides I don't know your level of daily anxiety, besides what we talked about on the conference, but you've mentioned feeling like you live with anxiety daily. What does that mean for you?
I think it's just genuinely worrying about the unknown. I think one of my biggest weaknesses with anxiety, and I know you'll agree, is that I am an empath. And I think I care almost too much about what other people think and say.
Yeah.
So I think it's almost like a weight on your shoulders, and you're kind of navigating the world as in like, am I going to upset this person? Is this person going to think I'm a bad person? Is this person going to react angrily, or is this person going to be disappointed with me? So here I am kind of navigating daily life and just trying to make sure everyone's okay. And sometimes often before myself. And I think that's kind of the day-to-day anxiety. On top of other things like family, I have a lot of anxiety over family, relationships, and just like, and like, I think the state of the world right now, like politics, I think it's just, it all kinds of adds up. Social media.
So it had all that weight you take on. And so how do you deal with that then? How do you cope with that on a daily basis if it's something you deal with on a daily basis?
I honestly have had to tell myself this, and you've told me this as well, and not in a mean way. I think in human nature, we are honestly so self-absorbed that we have so much, like I have a lot going on in my brain, and I'm kind of like thinking about what you're thinking. I'm probably thinking about what she's thinking, but there's other things that y'all are working on yourself. And so kind of telling myself that it's not that serious. Other people are living their own lives. Like y'all, like there's no like NPCs, non-playable characters. Is that what it stands for? Non-playable characters?
Yeah, non-playable character.
And other people just have their own things going on. And so if you're telling yourself it's not that serious. But I think then the anxiety in me is also like, well, you've met some people who are very socially unaware, and that they're not thinking about how other people feel or how they may react. But I think it's just like talking. I find talking to myself in the car helps. Breathing in the car helps. A lot of, or if it's like a very frustrating situation, you just like, oh, sometimes it's some of that. So I think it's like walking yourself through the process, and that it's not that serious.
Interesting. And it's interesting you say that, because you're right. Like, if there's pros and cons, like obviously your strength is that you care about people. That's why everyone loves you. That's why the customers love you. That's why you know their names and you remembered what they said the last time they came in, and you can ask about it genuinely, because you carry what they tell you, And so I think that's great. And you're right. So I'm just listening to you talk. I can see that weight on you when you do worry about. Because and I don't want to come off wrong, because I know there are times when we talk about it and I'm like, not that it's not this serious, but it's not your problem.
It's not my problem.
Right.
I think that's a great way to look at it too.
Yeah, because you'll come to me with something and I'm like, that's not your problem. Yeah, exactly. But that isn't your problem. But like, yeah, and it can come off, and sometimes you're right, because when I say it, it can come off insensitive, right? Or it can come off like I don't care as much.
But for me, it comes off as, Lauren, you do not have to stress yourself out about this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not yours to deal with. Like, you
Right.
can be there, but you are not solving this problem.
Yeah. And so, Jen, what are your thoughts?
Okay, sorry. I was like listening on I was like watching the
Jen, we're right here. I'm just kidding.
I also have ADHD and anxiety, so I think that they do come hand in hand. I have a very different experience from Lauren because I was diagnosed as a child. I think that and in females it is statistically underlooked, so you will be more likely to be like falling through the cracks and living it with your whole life and finding out at your age than knowing when I did. And I think what helps me cope with it is, I would agree, so at a young age they taught me to have strict schedules, to have organization in my life, because if not, I'll get nothing done, and I've realized that myself. Although I think at this point in my life I maybe take it a little too seriously. I recently moved, and having my stuff disorganized is super, like, having my space exactly the way that I can recharge and get everything done, that's how I cope with my anxiety. Being able to sit down after a long day, everything's clean, candles on, mood lighting's there, like everything is like perfect. And I think that is starting to become a little bit of a weakness, because everything can't be perfect all the time. And it does hold me back, because I choose to stay in the environment that I can control versus putting myself out there. And I think I was thinking about what you said, like you breathe in the car. I more so like things that give me anxiety would be like learning how to do this podcast,
Yeah.
and figuring everything out.
Yeah.
I have an expectation that you guys see me, that Jen can figure out anything.
Well, that is how we see you.
Absolutely.
That's 100% fact.
So I get a little, that gives me anxiety.
I'm so sorry.
Are we the drama? Are we the problem?
I know I put myself in that space, so I can't, like, I never complain, obviously, because I love what I do and I love learning and it's what I want to do, but at the same time, it's what gives me fear.
Yeah.
And I think just conquering that fear is what makes me less anxious.
Yeah.
So when I don't understand something, sitting down and learning and figuring it out, like getting these 3 microphones, I was like, what if they want 3 microphones?
I love
And
it,
can
thinking
only have
ahead.
2. So figuring that out is what gives me peace. Then I can be like, okay, I figured it out. It's gonna be fine. And of course, in the back of my head, there's like a little monkey that's always like, it's gonna break when you walk in there. So it's just like dealing, like,
Gotta
you
kill
can
the
only
monkey.
make the anxiety so small. The monkey can either be like a gorilla,
Yeah.
or it can be a little monkey that's like, you
It's
can
fine.
feel my shoulder and it's fine. You
Yeah.
know, that's not realistic, and I can tell myself that over and over again. But like, it's that monkey that keeps jumping on my back.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel like anxiety feels to me. It's like it could be huge, and there are ways to make it smaller, but it's never gone.
No.
It's
Monkey will always be there.
forever. And I don't know. I guess that's neurological. I don't know what that is.
I'm just listening to you both, and I see that in you, and I see it in a lot of people, right? And so I wonder. I mean, it's not a lot of people my age too, or because I don't feel that way, and I don't know where. But I appreciate listening to you guys because I see it a lot in different people, and it's easy to say, but what it sounds, part of that, not like the gist of it, but part of it is like our self-limiting thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
We limit ourselves because of what we think, and how do we change that? Because Brooke and I talk about this a lot, and that was a lot of our real estate training. When you go into something as crazy as real estate, is don't let your self-limiting thoughts stop you from thinking that you're old enough, knowledgeable enough, good enough, to help someone make big purchases. Like, she's young, so she's like, why would anyone, want me to help them buy hundreds of thousands of houses for 19? But she just sold one, so, but that's what. So anyway, so it just reminded me around everyone's self-limiting thoughts on that causes a lot of the anxiety, or causes the symptoms, or dealing with it. So it's interesting. Well, I know that this was really, really good. I mean, we can probably go, and we will talk about this many more times depending on the feedback we get from this episode, because there's other things around. I love mental health.
Yep.
I would love to talk more. I think this is a good stopping point for this episode, and let everyone kind of think about it and ask us questions. If you have follow-up questions for Lauren, Jen, myself in specific, we're open books, please DM the Instagram, Things in My Head Podcast, or email us at thingsinmyheadpodcast@gmail.com in terms of, this is what I felt like, or if we can help navigate you as non-professionals.
Yes. Well, I always say that it's not that you missed your calling, because you've had so many lives just in your years of being here on this earth. But I would say, you would make an excellent therapist, and there's still time.
Oh gosh, I know. With the schooling, if it didn't involve the schooling, I would love to.
You love school. Okay, really side note before we go. Mom took me to a seminar for the house buying, and all the realtors are there with the people that they bring, and the instructor is asking all these questions, and Mom's like, I know the answer to this. You would do. She says she doesn't like school, but she loves school.
I love learning.
You do love learning.
I just don't want to be. I don't want to be sequestered. All right. Well, we appreciate you. Love you so much. So this episode, tell us what you think, and then we will be back with. I think we're actually staying to record a few more episodes that we'll have each week. We drop them on Wednesdays.
Y'all are doing really good. The consistency has been
you.
awesome.
By the way, this this is the team. Lauren has come on board with us to help with some of the social media and the marketing,
It's
the
fun.
clips, and what she's really, really good at. Jen has done an amazing job learning the back end of how to actually produce and get this technically up. So my God,
Engineering.
the engineering. So I thank them both. So we love this. Like I said, we hope this is something you enjoy, even if just the one or two people get something out of it. And thank you for shopping and supporting our small business, which is Brooks Boutique. If you want to shop there, which are luxury consignments, brooksboutique.com. You can shop online. And if you are not even local, I will help with anything. But Brooke and I are realtors. So if you want to have any help to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, or just have questions, reach out to us, Sweet and Petite Duo, on Instagram. So thanks, guys. We'll be back. Bye.
Bye.